Today, obviously, we are talking about traveling. Let me focus. All right, we're going to talk about traveling. And I'm going to put this screen on. If you guys who have not been with the meeting session in the past, if you have a question, by all means, just speak up. You do have to unmute your microphone if you are not unmuted. Otherwise, I will not hear you. If you don't have a question, I would suggest you do mute your microphone. Last time, I think we had a toilet flush and a couple dogs barking. So I would prefer not to hear at least the toilet flush. All right. Let me get into share mode here. All right, can everybody see this? Good? All right.
I see it.
I'm just trying to see if I can. All right, if you guys text me, I don't know what's going to happen because I don't see it now, but that's all right. All right, traveling. Rule 4, Section 44, everyone should know that. Not important if you don't. But it is one of the longer definitions outside of maybe fouls. It's pretty long, but it's pretty definitive, as you can see. 5 articles, lots of wording. We're going to go through it all, hopefully quickly, but also hopefully thoroughly enough that you understand. So the biggest thing I want you to pull out of this one is establishing the pivot foot. All 5 articles, and I broke them out into 2 sections, but they all talk about the pivot foot, and that's how we're going to determine whether there is a travel or not, is knowing what the pivot foot is. The first 2 talk about establishing a pivot foot, and then the last 3 talk about after it's been established, what can you do? So let's go ahead and get started. I do like to mention, even though it's not rule definition in section 44 traveling, pivot is explained also in definitions, so you know what a pivot is. Everyone knows what a pivot is, right? Well, let's read it. When you step one or more in any direction with the same foot while the other foot stays on the floor. All right? So our example, yeah, he pivots back and forth. He can do the same foot multiple times. He doesn't have to move his body. As long as one foot is constantly touching the floor, the other foot may move in any direction. All right. So traveling, what is traveling? Well, when you move in excess of what we're going to talk about, that is traveling. So it has limitations as to what you can and can't do. And if you go beyond what they say you can do, traveling. So what is Article 1? The player who catches the ball with both feet on the floor can pivot with either foot. Easy enough, right? Here's an example, believe it or not. All right, he's caught the ball. Both feet are on the floor. Which foot is the pivot foot? Anyone?
I couldn't tell. I went too quickly.
It looked like he was pretty stationary, so either foot would be pivot.
He caught it with both feet on the floor. Which foot is the pivot foot?
It's not been established yet.
That's right. Article 1 says either one can be. Now which one's the pivot foot?
Left.
His left foot, because once he picks up his foot, the other foot becomes the pivot. All right. Easy enough. Article 2 says, a player who catches the ball while moving or dribbling may stop and establish a pivot foot. So now we're talking about a moving player. All right? When a moving player catches the ball, we've got 2 stipulations. If both feet are off the floor, and if one foot is on the floor. So let's talk about the first one. If both feet are off the floor, they're moving. Both feet are off the floor. I guess it's impossible not to move when you're in the air. If you land on both feet simultaneous, it's just as if you caught the ball with both feet on the floor. You can pick either foot that you want. All right, if one foot is followed by the other, Again, it's the same as if you're standing on the floor. As soon as that first foot comes down, the second foot, when the first foot comes down, the first foot is the pivot. So the second foot is the one that they can move randomly. And then if they catch it and they land on one foot, they may jump off that foot. They're only landing on that one foot. They can jump off of it and then simultaneously land on both. And if they land on both, then neither foot can be the pivot because that both feet have now become one foot. And that's become the one non-pivot foot. Everyone got that so far? All right. So let's watch a video here. This guy in the corner, all right? Let's watch him. The official calls a travel, but watch this. He catches it off the floor, right? So what can he do? He can land. And it looks like to me he landed simultaneously on both feet. Maybe not perfectly, but I'm not gonna split hairs on that. So what can he do when he lands simultaneously on both feet?
Either one can become a pivot foot.
Either one can become a pivot. Let's watch it again. What if his left foot actually did come down first?
That's what it looks like to me.
We can make an argument for that too. I won't disagree.
I don't think it was a travel.
So since his left foot hits the floor first, that becomes the pivot foot, correct?
Yes.
So what can he do with the other foot?
He can pivot. He can
Step
do
as many
whatever
times
he
as he
wants.
wants. He can pivot. Absolutely. All right. So which is the pivot foot we already talked about? Okay.
So you thought that was a bad call? I think it was a bad call.
That was a bad call. It was the wrong call.
Yeah, I agree.
It was the wrong call. But it happens all the time. And for those of you that are on here all the time, I watch a lot of video, and we get traveling wrong a lot. Usually it's calling a traveling that's not there. I'm sorry, usually it's not calling a traveling that is there, but occasionally we call a travel that's not there because we can get confused. That stutter step can get confusing. All right, now, if both feet are off the floor and they follow one by the other, we kind of talked about this already, but here's another example. Not the greatest quality, but here it is in slow motion.
Three traveled.
He catched it with both feet off the floor, but he came down with one, and then put his other foot down, and then brought that first foot down again. Did you see it? It went a little fast.
Yeah.
That's a travel. I'm going to play it one more time. Both feet off the floor, down. He picks it up and puts it back down.
Let me ask a question here. I agree with everyone on that one, but wasn't there a second thing where he's all of a sudden laying it up and could sort of take that step?
So on a layup, why are they allowed 1.5 steps? Because they're stepping with the first foot, which is the pivot foot, and then they're stepping with the second foot, which is the non-pivot foot, and they're allowed then to pick up their pivot foot and take a step forward. That's the half step, is moving that pivot forward. But as soon as they put it down, travel.
Got it. Okay.
And Ken, we get that wrong a lot when they go up for a nice easy layup. Many times uncontested, guys don't call that. And I'm not necessarily suggesting that you do call that on an easy layup to the bucket, but we miss that a lot.
It's a fine line between the two, but I understand your point. Good. Okay.
Very fine line. Thank you for saying that. Okay. Lastly, again, both feet off the floor catching the ball, and they come down on one foot and then jump off that foot onto both feet. I've got a clip for that. Let's watch it.
From the corner. Inside position.
Now, it's not a perfect 2 feet down, but for the purposes of this video, we're going to say he comes down on one foot, right? And lands simultaneously on both. All right, we're going to call that simultaneously. Let's not nitpick it. What can he do now in this situation?
Dribble or pass.
Can he pivot?
No.
No, because both of those feet have become 1 foot, the non-pivot foot. All right? So the pivot foot is nothing. Do we understand that, everyone?
Yeah.
Rebounds are hard too. We miss a lot of travels on rebounds because we're worried about them gaining control of the ball. But guys travel a lot on a rebound because they shuffle their feet once they have the ball. All right, part B.
I have one question with that.
Let's hear it.
You just mentioned gaining control. So like when someone is gaining control, are we starting the 1, 2, 3? And then is that an argument or not another opinion you can have that he didn't have control all the way?
Yes, so if someone were to say, I don't believe he had control of that ball until after both his feet were down. Well, I can't argue with you about the traveling. I could argue with you about whether he had control or not. And we all do see that differently sometimes. But yes, in your judgment, it comes down to when they actually controlled the ball. To me, controlling the ball is holding the ball. Sometimes with one hand, usually with 2 hands.
Right, and sometimes what I see is kids catching the ball, but their foot might be just touching the ground, but you don't know if they are holding it. So that's why I get a little confused sometimes on those type of transitions.
And I will say this: let's not split hairs on ones where we're like, oh, maybe it was down, then we didn't see it good enough, and we won't call traveling, because you don't want to penalize a kid if he didn't actually violate the rule. Only if we're 100% certain that he did.
Thanks.
All right. If 1 foot's on the floor, when they catch the ball, they're moving. Remember now, they're moving, and 1 foot is on the floor. It's the pivot foot when the other foot touches. All right? And again, they can jump off that foot and then simultaneously land on both. Here's a clip for the first one. Again, not the greatest quality, but you'll get the idea.
His rhythm. One man is averaging 21 points per game on the season and does an outstanding job.
He catches it with 1 foot on the floor. So now he's established a pivot foot as soon as his other foot touches. It touches, now it's the pivot foot. All right?
Travel.
He traveled there. We haven't got to that part of the section yet, but afterwards he traveled. Okay. He could jump off that foot and simultaneously land on both. Here's another clip. I got to get new quality videos. These are, all right. He jumps off 1 foot because he stopped his dribble as 1 foot was on the ground. He lands on both. We're still legal. What can he do at that point?
Pass.
Pass or
Shoot.
shoot. Can he pivot?
No.
No. And a jump stop we get wrong a lot because we get confused as to where they, to your last point, where did they catch the ball? Where did they stop moving? A player is considered to have stopped moving once they are holding the ball, right? If they're holding the ball, they're controlling the ball. If you're controlling the ball, you have stopped moving. Unless both feet are in the air, and we've already talked about what you can do. All right. Any questions up to this point?
No.
All right, now, Article 3. We are no longer moving. We have come to a stop, and we have established a pivot foot. What can we do? Well, let's start with the first one. Your pivot foot can be lifted, as we talked about in a layup, but not returned. Right? Once you lift the pivot foot, you still have options. You can pass or you can shoot, but you can't bring it back down, and you can't start another dribble. That's a different dribbling. Here's a clip.
I want my other guys to continue to go because he's not going to get everything. Brand for 3, step in, scoop.
Okay, he's established his pivot foot, right? 1 foot on the floor. He's actually pivoting pretty well, and he picks it up. Traveling or not?
No. Layup.
Yeah.
Not traveling because he's allowed to pick up his pivot foot, and once he does that, he can shoot or pass. That is totally legal. All right? If they jump, they have 1 foot on the floor. If they jump, neither foot can be returned to the floor before the ball is released on a try for a pass or goal. This is a little different from a moving player. Remember, if the player is moving and they establish that 1 pivot foot, when it comes down, then they can jump off and jump on 2, right? But once they have stopped moving, they can no longer jump off that foot and land on the other. Do we understand that? Big
Yes.
difference between moving and not moving. Here's a clip.
One more. And one.
He gets the rebound. Ignore that foul. Lands on his foot. All right, so that's his pivot foot. And he picks it up. Believe it or not, that actually came off the floor. And lands on it again. That's traveling. Does anybody not agree with that? You pick your pivot foot up and you land it back down, traveling.
And then he pivots on the other foot.
Many pivots, yeah. But because they,
I have a question.
yes,
Not this video, but the one prior to it. So if you go back 2 steps,
this one,
that one. Now on that one there's now on this one, when he lifts his pivot foot, does he, someone said it's a shot, but did he touch the floor with his non-pivot foot?
okay, let's watch it. And I'm going to try and explain it as it goes through.
Yeah.
Okay, so now this is his pivot foot, this one, right? So he pivots with his other foot, we're still legal, and then he picks up his pivot foot, and we're still legal because you're allowed to pick up your pivot foot.
Right. But on the next slide, the definition that we were just not, if the player jumps, it says neither foot may be returned to the floor before the ball is released on a pass or try for goal.
Okay, so good question. So what does he do? Does he jump or does he pivot? What foot does he jump off of?
He jumps off his right foot, which is not the pivot.
Left foot, and he pivots onto his right. And then he jumps. Does he come back down with either foot? No, he shoots the ball.
The right foot looks like it hit the ground.
Oh, I don't think it did. If
Oh,
it-
okay, and that's a matter of view.
if
Okay,
it did, then, and I'm not saying it did or not. I can only see it just as what you see.
but if it did, that
did
would be
come
a
down,
travel.
absolutely would be a travel.
Thank you. That's my point. Thank you. Sorry.
One more.
All right, we saw that one. Last part, after coming to a stop. Again, the pivot foot may not be lifted before the ball is released to start a dribble. So if you pick up your pivot foot, you haven't violated the rules, right? We've already established that you can pick up your pivot foot and it's not a travel. However, all you can do is pass or shoot. If you start a dribble, that is a violation. Here's an example.
Good.
So he puts his pivot foot here. And he goes, okay, I think I'm going to start it. And his foot's off the floor now. And then he starts his dribble. Okay? And it's not starting the dribble. I know that's what I just said, but the ball needs to be released on a dribble. If the ball is in his hands, even if he's in the motion of dribbling, by rule, that is traveling. If it's close and you're not sure, then you call nothing. But players do this a lot and they get away with it. They do, especially a little shuffle step, and they get away with it. And we got to start getting this because it's a big advantage. All right, Article 4. After coming to a stop, and neither foot can be a pivot, what can we do? Well, one or both feet can be lifted, just as in the other ones where you could lift your pivot foot, but you still can't return it to the floor on a pass for a try or goal.
And the floater.
So he jump steps and he lifts one foot and jumps off the other. Legal. Right?
Yeah.
All right. Either foot can be lifted before the ball is released on a start to try. Again, just like the last one, if you pick up your pivot foot, or if you don't have a pivot foot and you pick up your feet, you cannot start a dribble. I don't have a clip for this. Can you believe it? So he's down here, and the player jumps in the air and lands. You can't do that, right? You also can't, did you see that last one? I'm going to do it again. He jumps in the air and says, oh, crap, I'm going to get blocked, or I can't, and he starts to dribble while he's in the air and comes down. And I've seen this a couple times. That is a travel. And I will give you this general rule of thumb. If both feet are off the floor, I guarantee you the pivot foot is off the floor. Unless you catch the ball while you're in the air, both feet off the floor, and we've already discussed that. So do we understand that? Pivot foot in the air, you can't start a dribble. Questions? All right, last article of traveling, and then I got some clips that you guys can help out. A player who's holding the ball cannot touch the floor with a knee or any other part of the body other than a hand or a foot. They are allowed to put their hand on the floor without violating. Here is a clip. These are easy ones, guys. If the knee comes down, it is a travel. All right? If they fall and they stop themselves with their elbow, it is a travel. If their hip hits the floor, it is a travel. Anything other than a hand or a foot, it is a travel. That is considered falling down, traveling. All right? They also, if they get the ball while on the floor, they cannot get up. All right? Now, kind of back to the last part of the rule. The part here to know about is gaining control. So once you gain control on the floor, here's an example. All right, he's on the floor, and now he's got it, right? Now, nowhere in the rule book does it say anything about flipping over as a travel. But in the case book, it says when you flip over from one side to another, that is considered an attempt to get up. And if it's an attempt to get up, then that is traveling because you are not allowed to get up or attempt to get up. There's another clip that I saw. I don't have it here, but I saw it on YouTube or Facebook or something. Player gets the ball on the ground, sets it next to himself, stands up, and then picks up the ball. So he didn't get up with the ball. What do you all have, traveling or not traveling? Do you understand my scenario?
Travel.
Yes, travel.
If you put the ball next to you and stand
Is
up,
that starting a dribble, Joshua?
and if you gain control of the ball while on the floor and place the ball never left the floor, you just kind of leave it there and you stand up and then you pick the ball up. So you didn't dribble it, you just left it there. And you got up and you picked it up. That is considered an aversion of the rules. Aversion meaning you are trying to avoid the rule and skirt around it. And since you're doing that, that is still considered a travel because there's no possible way for you to get up while holding that ball other than leaving it there. So they consider that a travel.
Okay, I've got a related question to that, Josh.
Let's hear it.
So a player has the ball, he's stationary, and to no fault of anyone else, he goes down, doesn't have a third point of contact except for the ball on the court, right? So he's leaned forward almost in TP position.
Okay.
Right. So is that considered starting a dribble there at that point?
Okay, so off topic, which I'm glad to answer. Off topic, and that's on the topic of dribbling, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you dribble the ball, what do you need to do? You need to push, bat, or throw the ball down in a downward motion. That's not exact wording, but so if he falls and he's holding the ball and the ball touches the floor while he's holding it, that is not a dribble because he did not throw it down to the floor, right? He's simply, it's like kind of doing a calisthenic. You take the ball and you put it down to the floor and you touch it. And you bring it up and you put it down to the floor to touch it. Those are not dribbles because you're still holding the ball. Does that make sense? Does that answer your travel question then?
It does. Yeah. The reason why that popped up was the scenario where the guy's trying to skirt the rule, puts the ball on the ground. You know, to me,
Right,
that sounded like he's starting a dribble, you know, but
If he starts to fall and doesn't move his pivot foot and stops himself with the ball touching, that is fine. He can even stop himself from falling with his hand, his bare hand, because that is legal, right? Other than a hand or a foot. Good?
yep.
All right. All right, so that is traveling in a nutshell. Let's go through some video clips and see if you can pick out whether it's a travel or not.
Hey, I have a quick question on the other, the last segment.
All right, let's hear it.
Guys on the ground, has possession, hasn't given up a dribble or anything, starts to dribble, and then stands up.
That's fine.
Good question.
You
So,
see it a lot in youth basketball.
so when you are on the ground, and this isn't anywhere in the rule book or the case book either, but what do they say is your pivot foot when you're sitting on the ground?
Your butt.
Your butt. What if you are kneeling on the ground and you got the ball and your knees are on the ground? What's your pivot foot?
One of the knees, I think.
Your knees, right?
Yeah.
So technically you have a pivot foot on the ground. What can you do if you have a pivot foot on the ground?
Start a dribble.
You can start a dribble. So if you start the
Okay.
dribble and continue the dribble, then you may get up. Yes.
Okay.
The rule says after gaining control, touching up, or attempt to stand or get up while holding
Okay.
the ball. It doesn't say holding, but gaining control. So that's a good question. It's kind of a little foggy there, but yes, that would be illegal.
Okay, thanks.
Good question. All right. In this play, his knee goes down, but is it a travel or not? Let's watch it.
Brown. He took that from the red. And Hensler going for the steal, but analyze.
There's no call on the floor. Now, all these officials had to watch this real time. As you saw, it's fast, right? We get to slow it down. After watching all of those slowed down, do you have travel or no travel?
Travel.
Travel.
Ken, to your point, I think it was you, Ken, if it wasn't, it comes down to when did he control the ball, right? And I've had some guys say he didn't have control of that ball until after his knee was down. Then it's no traveling. But if, in fact, he did have control before his knee went down, I'm going to play it again. It doesn't matter when he catches the ball, if both his feet are in the air or not. Once he catches the ball, he cannot touch the floor with anything other than a hand or a foot. To me, he catches it right here. He's got it. Now he goes down with the knee. That's a travel.
Travel. Yep.
That's a hustle play, and a coach even might get mad at you because he says you're penalizing my kid for hustling for the ball. And he did hustle for the ball, but he went down on his knee after he got the ball. He can't do that. All right, ready for the next one? Oh, I played it again. All right. Same play. All right, here we go. Ready? Next one.
One more. And one.
We saw this one earlier, right? There was no call on the floor. Is that a travel or not?
Travel. He hopped his foot. He hopped his pivot foot.
He hopped off one foot and onto the same foot. That's a travel. Good? All right.
One more. One more.
All right, let's see. Next one.
Passing out of pressure. Rager from 15. Takes a little bit of a bump, but keeps it alive.
Not the greatest quality, I realize. What do you got?
Travel.
Rager, a 15.
Let's watch the analysis.
Takes a little bit of a bump, but keeps it alive.
Okay, he's a moving player and he catches it with both feet off the floor, right? Land on both simultaneously. He jumped off of both feet. What can he do when he jumps off of both feet?
Shoot or pass.
A moving player that lands on both feet simultaneously can. I gotta watch this again.
Passing out of pressure. Rager.
I don't want to speak out of turn here.
Takes a little bit of a bump, but keeps it alive.
All right, moving player. He comes down, lands on both feet. He can jump off of those feet and shoot or pass, correct?
Right. Correct.
Travel or not?
No travel.
It looks like he took a step and then pushed off with both feet, which
I'm not going to go back in the presentation, but let me read from the rule book again here. Okay, player who catches the ball with both feet in the air, if they simultaneously land on both feet, either foot may be the pivot. So what does he do? He jumps. He jumps off of both feet, doesn't he?
No, he jumped off the left.
He jumped off the left, so that would be his pivot, and he can then jump on the other one. I know I'm mucking this all up with this clip here. The point is, if you have a moving player, the rules are slightly different. So he came down on both feet. He can use either foot as a pivot. If he jumps off of one, that's his pivot. What can you do when you jump off of one foot?
Shoot or pass.
Well, what's the answer?
So that's a traveling, because once he steps off of one foot, he has
Right.
now established that foot as a pivot.
Okay.
Those are hard ones because they're moving on a rebound. And honestly, unless you're watching feet solely, you're going to have a good chance of missing it. All right. Next one. Are we ready?
From the corner. Inside
Now,
position.
again, we watched this one again, too. And I bring this up because we could have two different scenarios here. So does he travel? When does he travel?
Obviously, he travels. If it's when does he travel?
When does he travel?
When he puts that third foot down, when he moves the pivot foot and puts it back down.
From the corner. Inside position.
lands with his right.
Okay,
goes
so
to
now
the
he's
left,
he's
and back to
off
the
the
right.
floor. He comes down on one foot. So he can jump off that foot and land on both simultaneously, right? We've already watched that. We know that it's true. But once he does that, can he pivot?
No.
No, he cannot, which is why the last one was a travel, even though I took a long time to get around to it. However,
From the corner.
that's being generous with the landing on both feet simultaneously. I would say it's being generous. Because I think
That's the third step right there.
He landed on his right foot.
he comes down on one, lands on
does.
the other, travel. Did you have a question, Tim, or you're agreeing?
I agree.
All right. That happens a lot too. Again, these rebounds are tough because we're not really watching the feet to see if they travel. But they got to get the ball and come down legally. So if they don't, call it. All right, those are the rebounding ones. We ready to move on? Did you see what he does? Again, not great quality, but let's look at it. Ball gets loose. Ball gets loose. He regains control. Official calls a travel. Did he travel? Let's see. He's holding the ball here, and both his feet are on the floor. So what can be the pivot foot?
Either one.
Either one. But what does he do?
Changes his feet.
He jumped off both of his feet and moved them both, and then started a dribble, right? And if we jump off of both feet, what do we have?
Travel.
Traveling. That was a good call by the official. Probably took some heat for it from the coach, but the right call.
I understand our call and I agree, but it looks like he traveled a couple of times.
52.
Maybe. Does he kick the ball?
I think the first time he gets control of it, he travels.
So here he got control of it right there. So he may have traveled right there in the beginning. Is that what you're talking about, Ken?
Yes.
But the question would be, did he have control of it? Did the other player possibly have somewhat control of it? Was he still fighting for possession?
It's possible.
You could be right. Maybe he traveled right then. But from this angle that we have, we can't really know for sure whether he had possession at that moment. But that's a good pickup because, yes, if he had control of it there, that's a travel. All right. I think he kicked it beforehand, but
You're not going to call a kick.
all right. Ready? Next one. Okay, we saw this one again too, right? I got to get some new videos. Not like I don't have any. All right, so when does he travel on this one? Whoops, sorry.
Right there.
Right there.
Right there.
Right
there, meaning what did he do?
I think he put the ball down.
Once he picked up his pivot foot,
right,
he can no longer start a dribble. Right? So he catches the ball, both feet off the floor. Pivot foot is right here, is clear as day. The official saw it too. Once he picks it up,
There's a travel right there.
done.
right.
I think all of you got that one. That's a 100%er. All right. We're learning here. All right. I think I got 3 more, and that's it. All right, ready?
Nowhere to go with it. Gives it up.
Do we see the guy? Here he is.
Pivot feet.
He makes a nice pivot, pivots out from him. No major movements by his feet, just a nice slow pivot. Did he travel or no?
Not that I saw.
No.
Play it
I
again.
thought he did, actually.
I thought he changed pivot feet.
Yeah, change pivot.
Yeah.
Let's watch it again.
Gives it
There
up.
was no
Right foot
call
is
on by any of the game officials. No call.
Right foot's pivot. Now he puts the left down. He switches it.
You see anything there?
Right there.
Yeah.
That was a travel.
All right, here, let's see the answer here.
Go with it. Gives it up.
There's his pivot foot, left foot.
Yeah, and he stays on his left foot the whole time.
Did you see
His-
that?
He had his right
I'm
foot
gonna put it
down.
back here. Watch this. I'm going to say pivot once he gets a pivot.
Right.
All right, the slow version.
Nowhere to go with it.
He gains the ball. He's holding it. And what does he do? He pivots off of that foot onto the other. Did you see? Sorry, I didn't say pivot. I know I said I was going to.
Went from right to left.
As soon as he gains the ball, I'm surprised I didn't put any circles on this one. Boom, he's got it right there. He just pivoted. And now he pivots again.
On the other foot.
Right there.
It's a travel.
Yep.
Coaches over here even help.
It was subtle, though. Half of you didn't see it because That's kind of a normal basketball move, right? But a lot of players do this all the time. They switch to pivot foot because they don't like to pivot on their left. They like to pivot on their right. So when they get the ball and they make that small little pivot, and then they start the regular pivot, they actually switch it. Travel. Nobody had this. This, I believe, was a state final game. So happens to the best of us. All right, how about this one? Official calls a travel. Is it a travel?
Yes.
No.
Let's look at a little bit closer. Did you
His
see
right
it?
foot with the pivot. He had the possession on the
Here it
right
is
foot.
closer. Ready? He has possession here, which means that's his pivot foot. So once he lifts it and puts it down, he traveled. But wait, there's more.
There he goes. He travels twice.
He traveled twice. Let's be generous here. All right? Let's be generous. All right, yes, you've seen this. Oh, it didn't move it. I'm going to go back. Look at this one. So let's say he has possession, but let's say his left foot is the pivot foot. All right, the left foot, the one that's not circled.
That could be if
So
you didn't.
this pivot is legal, but then what does he do? He
lifts
picks
up
up his pivot foot
Dribbles.
and starts a dribble. So that's a travel. Did everybody see both of those?
Yes.
So regardless as to whether you think that that first pivot foot was right or wrong, he traveled anyway.
Ref got it.
But the ref got it.
I think the ref got the second one.
The game official got it right. What's that?
I think the ref got the second one.
Yeah, he did.
Again, I'm not concerned, and to be honest, I like to err on the side of
Caution.
caution's not the word, but you know what? Give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's not split hairs and say, I saw it. You caught it a half second before you put the foot down. All right, fine. You're going to choose your foot. It was close enough. But that picking it up before you dribble, I mean, that's a travel. And if we don't call it, they're going to continue to do it.
Got to get to 4 1/4.
Four and a
number the goal. Yeah, I'm just saying.
Oh, someone's talking to the delivery boy. All right. Ready? This is a very, very common move these days, right? The spin move to the bucket. It's a nice move when done properly because you can totally lose your defender and get a nice, easy shot to the bucket.
Travel.
Did he travel?
He traveled.
He picked up and put his pivot back down again. He pivots on his right foot and he puts his right foot back down again.
I thought he landed simultaneously.
Where's he holding the ball?
He's
What's
holding
he
it.
pivoting on now while he's holding the ball?
His right foot.
His
His right
foot.
foot.
What does he do with the right foot?
Puts it back down again. It's a
He
travel.
lifts
Down
it,
the
puts
floor.
it down to get a nice little jump shot. That's a travel.
Every time.
And if you start watching these spin moves, you're going to see that they travel 90, maybe that's high, 80, 75, 80% of the time. They're traveling every time. And we're not calling it because it's a good spin move. Looks good, nice and strong. It's so fast, it's hard to see. We got to see it because that's a huge advantage that player just got. 2 easy points. All right. Here's another spin move. Again, very common. Okay, official calls a travel. Did he get it right, or was it not a travel?
No, he got it right.
You got it right.
Looks like a regular basketball move to me,
Yeah, it doesn't look like traveling to me.
right? But he has the ball here, Pivots off his right foot. Clearly his pivot foot. Still legal here. We can shoot or pass. Oh, puts it down.
There it is.
Very hard for a player to spin move pivot and not put his foot down to shoot the ball. Very hard. Some can do it. Good call by the game official. Another spin move. Okay, we got a foul. Foul on the play. He got fouled. But did he travel first?
Yes.
Has the ball here, clearly pivots off his right foot. Okay, that's still legal. He can shoot or pass. Oh, wait. He put his foot down. That's a travel. We just rewarded this player with 2 shots for violating the traveling rule. We got to get that. He shouldn't be shooting. Now, most of us probably would have made the same call in that time, but that's why we're doing this, so we can start looking at this differently and seeing, wait, it's a spin move, here it comes. Let me know what the pivot foot is. Oh, yeah, he traveled. If we start looking for it because we know what we're looking for, this will happen less and less. All right. Yes?
All right, one guy puts up a fist, the other guy puts up an open hand for violation. I know this is not covering that, but.
No. It's a very good question. So if you have a travel, on that play, there was the lead and the trail, right?
Correct.
You guys see my little pointer?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so the lead and the trail. The trail is kind of looking at the play because it starts here, right? The lead has got the play because it came into his area. So this could be a double whistle situation. If the trail says, oh, no, I got the travel, and he comes up with a foul, don't just put your hand down. That is information you've got to share. Doesn't mean you go in and say, absolutely, we are not shooting this. This is a travel. You just go into the player, the official who called the foul, hey, I had him travel before he got fouled. And then you talk about it. And if most officials are going to say, okay, your travel came first, that's what we'll go with. Some officials are going to say, absolutely not, we're taking my call. And you know what? There's nothing you can do other than give them the information that you have.
Okay, thanks.
But I know if someone comes to me and says he traveled, even if I think that you're wrong, I'm probably going to go with the travel.
Okay.
Because I don't know. If you said you saw travel, then travel. I'd rather go with the violation than a foul. Unless the kid got hammered, I suppose. That's a good question. Always go in with that information. Double whistle. If you've got something different and you know that it's going to change the way we administer, absolutely. All right. Another spin move. Almost done here, guys. Please tell me you saw a travel on that one.
Yes.
He traveled a couple times.
You think?
But did you see what the call was? Sorry. All right. Nice slow motion. It's easy when it's in slow motion. Easy. No call at all. No call. He catches the ball here. All right. He was off the ground, so he can land on both, and either foot can be the pivot. So now he has a pivot foot. He just lifted it.
That's a travel.
He put it back down.
That's a travel.
Wait a second. He started to dribble when his pivot foot was off the floor. All right. Let's say he didn't. That's splitting hairs. I can agree. Okay, fine. So now he catches the ball here. Another pivot foot. Lifts it again and does a nice little spin move. Oh, wait, he put it back down.
That's a walk in the park.
That one's a travel all day. We got to get that. And that first one should get your radar up and say, okay, wait a second, he's getting funny with his feet here. Just because the players are the best in the state, I think this was a final game. Just because it's a final IHSA Class 4A, doesn't mean these kids don't travel. All right. Any questions on those that we didn't cover?
Hey, Josh.
Yes.
Hey, this is Dave. Do you have any ones about anybody sliding on the floor, possibly getting up?
Sliding on the floor. I don't think I have any sliding on the floor. What did you say after sliding on the floor?
Well, in the attempt to try getting up and everything else. I mean, there's a lot of guys that, if they're sliding back and everything else, not a traveling unless they turn and try getting up.
I will keep an eye out for those this season. However, let me make the comment. If you gain control of the ball while on the floor and you slide 40 feet, is that a travel?
No.
No.
And because what did we say? When you gain control of the ball while on the floor, what are you not allowed to do?
Get up.
Get up.
Right, get up or attempt to get up. If you slide 40 feet, are you attempting to get up?
No.
No.
No, so it's not a travel. Not to mention, it's your momentum that's taking you that way. Now, if you start crawling forward, you're not getting up, but you're crawling forward, are you traveling?
Yes.
Yeah, because you're now you're trying to avert the rules by crawling on the floor. And I didn't try and get up, but no, you can't do that.
How about if when when you're sliding, but you're trying to, you're turning, because a lot of them will turn to the right or to the left, not attempting to get up. And
that is a very good question. All right. I had a discussion with my crewmates one year about, because again, nowhere in the rule book does it say you cannot flip over. Nowhere in the rule book. However, in the case book, it says you cannot flip over. Well, I said, what does flipping over mean? Right? Because Dave is saying, if you get the ball on your belly and you flip to your side to pass it, that's an advantage. You're flipping over, right? Would we call that a travel or no? No, that's not a travel. And why is it not a travel? Because flipping over is from one side to the other side.
Oh, Tim, you're ugly.
So you literally have to go from one to the other. If you go from here and up like that, you didn't flip over. You're flipping, but you didn't flip over. And I know it's being very technical, and we actually looked up in the dictionary what over meant. But over is from one side to another. So flipping over, so if you go to one side, I think that's okay. Just as if you're on your belly and you start to rise up on your knees so you can pass it, I'm going to allow that because you're not trying to get up. Are you going to be able to pass on your belly? You got to give them some allowance.
Yeah.
All right, but if you sit up on your knees and now you're looking around, that's probably a travel because you're not just passing the ball away. You're now gaining an advantage because you're getting up. So we have to use a little bit of common sense here. One situation may not fit another, and it may be similar. Good question. Anyone else? Anything that we didn't cover?
I want to make sort of a comment, Josh, here. I've been doing this 10 years, and I've been with AOS 10 years, and I've learned a lot. I would say that if I were to be self-critical of myself, especially when I'm refereeing with people like Jerry Heidloff, all right, who's very seasoned and experienced, and Jim Hayes, they call a lot more travels than I do, all right? And I'm sort of looking at this presentation here, self-critical of myself, and now I'm maybe getting to understand a little bit more why they're calling that, because I don't think I call that enough, all right, according to these rules. So just sort of side comment, this is one of the better training sessions of AOS that I've had.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, Ken. And part of being able to identify travel properly is knowing what to look for.
Right.
Right? A lot of people play basketball their whole career, high school, college, and come back, and they still don't know what travel is because they've never actually looked at what a travel is. They know what they did on the floor, but what they did on the floor might have been a travel and no one called it.
Right.
So
no, because they never traveled.
Understanding the pivot foot is honestly the most important part of travel. So hopefully now when you go on the court, you'll be more aware. And what I would say is if you have a couple partners that are calling more than you and you're not sure what's going on, try and get a hold of that video and watch the ones that they call and go through it and say, why did they call what they called? They may have gotten one wrong. They may have not. But you can now look at it, analyze it, and say, oh, that's what it is. I know we don't ref in slow motion, but it sure helps when you slow things down, because then you can analyze as to what they actually did. And then watch it in fast motion again and see if you get it. All right, the last thing I want to say, guys, is I'm going to pull this up real quick. I'm going to share it with you. I just want to make sure you all are aware. Share, share, share. Everyone see this? Oh, wait. All right, you see this?
Yeah.
I have a YouTube channel that I think I've sent you guys the link, but I'm putting up all of this stuff. All right, so when you go to the page, this is what you're going to see. I've got a few segments here with video clips you can watch with me talking. This is the training video from last week. If you want to see the mechanics online meeting, it's there. Just go on and watch it. I got a lot of clips like we watched on this presentation. They're all here. They've got circles and diagrams to help you see it. There's no talking on these, but it helps you to understand better. And then these are for AOS when we have our meetings. So I'm going to put this training video right here. By all means, I'm going to send this link out tonight or tomorrow. Share this link with someone else. If they want to see it or they missed it or you thought it was good and you think someone else could benefit from it, have them watch it as a recording. It could be just as beneficial as sitting here. I mean, I would rather you guys be here live so you can ask questions, but it's just another way to experience it. So I will send that guys out like I said, sometime today or tomorrow. And again, by all means, share it. So unless anyone has anything else.
Thanks, Josh.
Thanks, Josh. Great job.
Thanks, Josh.
Thanks, Josh.
Thanks. Take care, guys.
Good job.
Sorry I was late, Josh.
No problem.
Thanks, Schroeder.
Take care, guys.
All right.
See you, Josh.